everybody. One of the challenges that we have identified as important to treat while we are making our educational activities are gender microaggressions. This topic is complex because often brings a lot of rejection and people tend to undermine the possible consequences because we talk about actions, words, environmental threats that are normalized in our societies, and often we are not conscious about them. To visualize how serious the problem is, let me introduce you with one of the research about the double standard on mental health. So what has happened in the research? Both male and female physicians were asked to define what is the healthy male, healthy female, and healthy adult based on the set of 122 different personal traits. The results shows gender-related bias, and the judging that what is mentally healthy person depends on whether you imagine a man or a woman. Healthy male is considered the same as healthy adult, but healthy female, it's something different. A woman being described with the same personal traits as healthy man, it's considered unhealthy. So in other words, to be a healthy female, it's to be an unhealthy adult. We can ask ourselves why it happens. Yeah? During our lives, we are being exposed permanently to different messages that teach us how women and men should be. And since those things are deeply rooted in our subconscious, we are reproducing those communications and letting it influence the way we think and our decisions. So in the case of the research, we clearly see that males and females are being treated differently when it comes to the mental health. But we know as well for certain that there are different aspects of our life that we are treating as well females and males differently. Like, for example, decisions who is doing the household work, who is being hired and promoted in the job setting, who is running and being elected for the public positions, and much more. For those actions or non-actions, those actions and non-actions are some of the examples of the microaggressions. Yeah? So let's try maybe to define a bit what the microaggressions are. And it's quite difficult since it could be almost everything. How we look at people, the comments we do, the tone of the voice we use when we communicate. The actions we take and not take. So in other words, whenever we are talking about the microaggressions, we can talk about the words, actions, and different forms of expressions that are brief, normalized, frequent, and the most important, they pass degrading messages, making the target groups feel less important, less powerful, like second-class citizens. We assume often that comments we make are just harmless. But when someone is being exposed to them on a daily basis, they become a serious threat both to the mental and physical health. So let's use an example of the gender microaggression to understand it better. A male boss is making the comment to his female colleague about how she looks like. On the daily basis, she receives compliments whether she has the new piece of clothes or when she wears the different makeup. There is no sexual intention behind it, and at first it could be very enjoyable. But after some time, the woman sees that the boss is complimenting her male colleagues based on their job performance, and just her, based on how she looks like. On the long run, she might feel insecure about the quality of her work. On the other hand, she might not be considered for the promotion since her boss sees her as invisible in relation to work. Well, so this was one of the examples, and we can see few more examples based on the 4 different categories of the microaggressions. First one is the sexual objectification. It is when we reduce women to their physical appearance and sexuality. For example, staring at women's breasts while talking to her, making catcalls, whistling, hanging posters of nude women in the office, making remarks about women's body, or making sexual jokes. The other category It's called second-class citizens. And it is when we are communicating, when our communications are indicating that women do not deserve the same opportunities, benefits, and privileges afforded to men. For example, when women are offered less important tasks in the workplace, or when men are served first as customers. The third category is assumption of inferiority, considering women inferior intellectually, physically, or in relation to leadership roles. The belief that women are less talented in mathematics, logical thinking, that often influence our educational system and career choices. Women often are being discouraged not to pursue their dream profession because they are advised not to do, assuming they will not manage. And the last category is the sexist language. The language has power to shape our world, and the patriarchal nature of our society is reflected in the structure and the content of the language. Like names of occupations, the ones connected to power, like policeman, chairman, firefighter, evoke images of men, while nurse, secretary, daycare worker suggest images of women in less powerful supportive roles. Those are just some of the examples, and I recommend you to look for more. For sure you will find plenty. So let's focus right now on the consequences. We can summarize the consequences with one word, stress, which is coming from the fear that we are having on a daily basis to be harassed, to be compared to a man, or need to prove ourselves in the male-dominated world. The stress which comes from the need to look in a very specific way, as media are picturing us, how we should look like, slim and beautiful. Or the stress of being the object of the mistreatment when we don't fit to the norms. The stress on the long term can lead to many serious consequences. It can have impact on our physical health, like causing the weaker immune system, influencing the hypertension, or even leading to the heart diseases. Mental health is as well highly influenced by stress, and the studies shows that 7 million women suffer from the depression, which is double the number of men. Among the other consequences, we can mention as well lower standard of living, exposure to greater emotional and physical violence, affect the quality of our healthcare and education we receive, decrease the sense of the self-worth, and contribute to the inequalities in employment. I do believe that education on microaggressions can raise awareness on those issues and help us better understand the causes and consequences and increase motivation to act. With our educational programs, we can give tools to young people to become more aware about their own microaggressions and support them to remove them. On the other hand, we can actually work to empowering vulnerable groups to make them feel safe and not alone.